Hello fellow cinephiles, Cinema Guru here. Thanks for joining me again. I know it's been a while since I put up a video. There hasn't been many movies I've really wanted to talk about, and I'm trying to rethink about the videos I want to do on this particular channel, and I'll keep you updated in regards to what's going to change or what I want to sort of do with it now. But today I thought I'd do a review of a new film that I just saw, Weapons. This was directed by Zach Cregger, and this is his follow-up to Barbarian, which I must admit I liked the first half of, but was a little disappointed with the second part of that film. But I think Weapons is a real step up for him. It stars Julia Garner, Josh Brolin, Benedict Wong, Austin Abrams, Eldon Enrich, and Amy Madigan. And for those who are unfamiliar with this particular movie, when all but one child from the same classroom mysteriously vanishes on the same night at the exact same time, a community is left questioning who or what is behind their disappearance. They really sort of turn upon Julia Garner's character Justine and think she's responsible in some form. And that sort of adds an interesting element to it, because you don't really know what's going on. You don't really know her or the characters to begin with, and you're not really sure what has transpired. Because the film opens up with a young child, I guess it's a female child, I'm not 100% sure, doing a voiceover talking about this sort of thing that happened in their small town and what transpired. And then we sort of open up on the images of these kids just waking up at 2:17 in the morning and just running out of their houses. I love the way they're running too, the arms behind them, they're running. It's just really fascinating. And then it sort of devolves into sort of telling the story from different points of view, where we meet different characters and then having all those characters come together in the end. I really like that sort of storytelling. When they do that particular thing where they break it down and show it from different points of view, it's usually one instance and we see the point of view from that particular instance. Where this sort of shows how each of the characters got there, it has that instance that crosses over with another character, but then it continues on in a different way. I thought all the performances were really great. Julia Garner's really good. Josh Brolin's solid as well. Like Benedict Wong, he was kind of funny and had some really shocking moments, which I liked a lot. Amy Madigan was phenomenal in her role in the film. I'm not going to go into too much detail who her character is and her involvement in the story, but she was wonderful. I thought she did a fantastic job as a really fascinating character. There's a lot of history there with the character we don't completely know, but we know enough to get a gist of who she is or who she was, and I liked that. I thought that was a really interesting aspect to the film. But what the film does really well is, to begin with, it's like a fly on the wall type thing. You've got this young child explaining what's going on, and then we sort of then we're introduced to the Justine character, and we follow her on her journey. But it's sort of this fly on the wall look at her life and what's going on, and we see bits and pieces. As the film unfolds, we're ultimately shown much more of the world, and we're actually become part of the story rather than just viewing it, which I thought was interesting. It's like, okay, we're going to show you a glimpse of what the film is, and now you're part of it. There's so many great moments in the film. What I love too is the fact this film wasn't sort of a shocking, violent horror film that Barbarian sort of turned into. It's much more of a psychological horror. And these psychological horrors is something I really enjoy. I don't mind a bit of gore and stuff if it serves a purpose, and this film does have that towards the end of the movie, but it's just the journey we go on with the characters. I like it sort of takes its time a little bit, and we're introduced to these characters, we get a sense of who they are. And then the sort of horror is part of that, because you don't really know what's going on to begin with. Why did the children run out of the house at that time? Where have they gone? Why doesn't anybody know what's transpired? And little by little we're given certain information, but it isn't until we get to the last character that we really find out what has transpired. And there's some really great horror moments in it, just with strange things happening, where people getting attacked, just these overall sort of creepy sense of the film, characters having nightmares, and we're seeing this sort of creepy looking sort of clown figure that we don't really know what's there or who that particular clown figure is. And I really like sort of, as we learn what's going on and the threat that these characters are facing is really great. It has a lot of absurd humor in it, which I really loved. It was very comical. It was very humorous in parts I didn't expect. And at times it reminded me a bit of Jordan Peele and a bit of Ari Aster, especially Beau Afraid. And movies like that where it's sort of really telling an interesting and unique story. And this felt very refreshing in regards to horror film and the particular genre that's looking at. And I think Zach Cregger did a fantastic job with the film. I was super impressed. I was sucked into the movie. I loved every aspect of what was transpiring. I love the way it was shot. There's some really cool sequences and angles and shots that are in the film that sort of make it really interesting and beautiful. And with each character we're introduced and seeing their story. Each one's filmed in a different way, and then adds back to what that previous one had done and the way it was shot. I did kind of pick what was happening and what was responsible for the kids doing what they did about in the third act pretty much. But in saying that, it was still an interesting aspect of what really was, even though I pieced certain things together. It relied a lot on just creepiness. Yes, there was a couple of jump scares in the film, but it didn't rely on those. They served a purpose. There needed to be a particular shocking aspect to those scenes and those moments, and that's why they were the jump scares. But it's just the feel of the film. I love horror films that have an unsettling and strange feel, much like all of Jordan Peele's movies. There's just this sort of humour to them, but there's just something dark under the surface, and it just makes you feel unsettled. Your whole experience with the movie just makes you feel uneasy because you're not sure what's going to happen from one scene to the next. Very rarely I love a movie from the get-go, but as soon as that child's voiceover came on, I was hooked. I loved all of it. My only worry was I was hoping he was going to stick the landing. Like I mentioned, I thought the first half of Barbarian was really interesting and unique and different. It was revealed what the threat was. I just thought it was a bit lackluster and disappointing. But with this film, he really stuck the landing. He lent into exactly what he was trying to say and do. He lent into the absurd humour and the craziness of sequences, but he let scenes play out. The film could feel at times a little long, but I think that's because he's allowing certain things to play out and experiences and characters to play out in a certain way. So you get a real sense of that. I absolutely love this film. I was so impressed with it. It is definitely one of the best films of the year, one of the best horrors of the year, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what Zach Cregger does next. And by the look of it, his next film is going to be Resident Evil, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what he brings to that. I think he's a really fascinating director. He's part of that new wave of horror with Jordan Peele, Ari Aster, Robert Eggers. They're all trying to take this genre and certain aspects of it and just breathe fresh life into it and become a breath of fresh air in this particular genre or the type of films they're making. And that's why I'm really loving these sort of horrors. They just sort of were tapping into something that we haven't seen in a while, haven't seen at all. It's very rarely too that I love every aspect of a movie, but this had everything that I really enjoyed. The creepiness, the horror elements, an engaging story, and just sort of kind of a fun aspect to it that you don't really expect. Even in the ending, when there's a horror, there's a sort of big gory moment, it's really funny, just because of what transpires before that particular moment. The director's really pushing these particular elements in horror, and he's really starting to really click onto something really interesting. And he's a director that feels original and unique and really showing us a different side of particular horror and how to do a sort of a unsettling, sort of creepy, psychological horror. I really love the music. I loved particular visual elements. Like I said, the way the kids were running was really fascinating. And when you find out where the kids have gone and you see them running towards this particular thing, it's just fantastic. It's like a dark street and you're just seeing all these kids come out. It's just, really, really interesting. I would have liked to know a bit more about the particular threat in the film, as we got a little bit of it, but not as much as we could have. But I'm willing to let that sort of stuff go. There was a bit of a technical issue with the screening that we had, whether it's the mixing itself or whether it's the cinema. The audio was very quiet, the music was very loud, and I struggled a little bit to hear what the voiceover was saying and particular characters when they were speaking. It just felt very low. That changed as the film went on, but it just felt like there was a little bit of a mixing issue. But besides that, everything else about it I really enjoyed. I like movies that really are about you trying to participate to work out, like a murder mystery. You're trying to work out what's happened, what's going on, and you're picking up little clues and things along the way. And I'd rather psychological horror than really gory stuff, unless it's Evil Dead, because it has a different impact on the audience, and that's what I really loved. And the screening we had was really great. We had some teen girls in there, and they screamed at certain moments, and usually people making noise or screaming would annoy me, but I loved it because it was part of the experience. The movie felt like kind of an experience in a way, because everybody was into it, they were talking about it and trying to work it out and asking questions, and it just felt like a really great environment and a great experiencing this film with a really great audience. In the end, I think this is a really great horror film, and it's a real step up, I think, for Zach Cregger's from Barbarian to this, and what his concept of Resident Evil might look like. But I hope he continues to do more original things, because I feel sometimes when directors, especially horror directors, come out and they do something really interesting and original, when they go into a known franchise or series, they tend to get lost in that world because they're not doing their own thing. Not saying that'll happen to Cregger's, but it does feel like an interesting how he's gone from two really original horror films into something that's already been set up and has had good aspects to it and bad aspects. But look, it may be a great film, we'll just have to wait and see. But this is a film that I do highly recommend if you're a horror fan, if you like something different. All the reviews of it are talking about how amazing it is, and I tend to agree with them this time. I don't always do that because I think a lot of films are overhyped and I don't enjoy them as much. Where this film was exactly what people were saying, but it didn't happen in the way I expected, which made it so much more refreshing. Anyway, that's it from me today. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please subscribe down the bottom, follow me on Letterboxd and Facebook. Otherwise, until next time, enjoy the movies.